I wanted to talk a little bit more about the design of the labyrinth and three sacred spaces that we find within the design. Perhaps focusing on one or more of these spaces can offer you a new experience with the labyrinth. Remember, using the labyrinth as a tool for spiritual practice is all about opening to the metaphors that arise for our life or whatever our intention is for our practice. So, the first sacred space that we find or encounter when we approach the labyrinth is at the entrance. Um, this is a perfect space for setting our intention. It is the space of beginnings, and as we'll see in a minute, endings. It's a reminder that life and our journey is a cycle, and that we are constantly encountering beginnings and endings as we flow. It reminds me of that sense from St. Benedict's rule, always we begin again. And of course, there's a translation of the rule of St. Benedict by John McQuiston called Always We Begin Again. That reminder that each day is a new chance to begin, but also sometimes we fail or miss the mark. And we have a chance to start over. We create an opportunity to start over again. And the entrance to the labyrinth really makes me think of that phrase, always we begin again. And so sometimes we walk up to the labyrinth to begin our experience, and we might just quickly set an intention and start walking. We want to get into the path. But I think there's something really special about spending time at the entrance. And so perhaps maybe the next time you engage the labyrinth, you simply stand at the entrance, looking at all of the possibility, the journey laid out before you. Maybe you sit there or kneel there, stand there, whatever it is that really helps you to embody that idea of beginning, the journey. So then we can turn to the second sacred space that we encounter in the labyrinth, and that is the turns. So in the classical labyrinth, there are less turns. The path circumambulates the whole design a little bit more, but especially in the medieval style known in the Chartres design, we have these quadrants being broken up by the turns that happen, some 20 turns in the course of an 11 circuit labyrinth. And all of these are opportunities, little pockets of sacred space that can easily be overlooked. Remember, the labyrinth is unique because it is a meandering path. And in many labyrinths, especially those with more circuits, it's sort of easy to get lost, and not in the sense of like you would in a maze where you find a dead end, but to get lost in the sense that you are just following the path and it's turning and you're not sure whether you're on the outside, closer to center, almost finished with the journey or just beginning. It's easy to sort of move into a sense of kairos time, that holy spaciousness that occurs when we're practicing our spiritual practices. And so the turns make the labyrinth different from, say, a spiral, which is a type of meandering path, but one in which we continue always in the same direction. As I mentioned in the introductory video, labyrinths are distinct from mazes for that reason, that the path continues with those turns. And so the turns make me think about change. We turn in the medieval style labyrinth, we do 180-degree turns. It feels like we're actually going a new direction, but instead it's actually the path continuing. And I think there's a beautiful metaphor there for how change and turns occur in our lives, in our spiritual lives. It also makes me think, drawing on my yoga background, of one of the Yoga Sutras. The second sutra talks about yoga being the stilling of the fluctuations, or you might say the calming of the turning of our minds. And so while change is inevitable and beautiful, It's also a reminder sometimes to look at how much change and fluctuation we're experiencing, and how might we calm ourselves down, center ourselves, and bring those changes and fluctuations to a place that they're not presenting us with challenges. So all of that sort of comes as we encounter those turns in the labyrinth experience. And then the third sacred space that the labyrinth offers us is perhaps the most obvious, and that is the heart, the center of the design. Depending on the style of labyrinth that you're working with, that will determine what kind of center you encounter, what center is there for you, and how much space there is, what it looks like. Um, but either way, regardless of what exactly your center looks and feels like, it offers us a chance for stillness. The metaphor of being in our center is pretty obvious. And it brings to mind the classic teaching of Ram Dass to be here now. That's a phrase that I often will repeat, sort of like a mantra during a labyrinth experience. Be here now. And so, what might it look like to spend a little extra time in the center, practicing presence and being here now? A bonus sacred space, fourth space, is at the exit, which of course is also the entrance, as I mentioned earlier. And I think there's certainly a good metaphor to contemplate in the fact that we return to that same space where we began on our journey, and suddenly the exit is now the entrance again, and always we begin again.